have been dying for Final Fantasy VIII to be re-released on modern hardware so they can relive Squall's journey again. With the release of Final Fantasy VIII Remastered on September 3rd, they were finally able to get that experience. But despite this long-demanded game, people soon took issues with the game, with the word remastered being somewhat of a double-edged sword. Final Fantasy VIII Remastered is without question the best-looking version of Final Fantasy VIII. The new character models are absolutely gorgeous, and the retouched menus and UI look pretty good. However, there are issues, both major and minor, with this port that keep it from being the definitive version of Final Fantasy VIII. But before we dive into any of that, I want to address the myth of the lazy developer. I don't think Square Enix, the remasters developer .emu, or anyone involved with these projects are lazy. There's internal decisions made that those of us outside may not agree with. There's budgets that can't be exceeded, deadlines, and technical issues that are hard to resolve. That being said, I want to respectfully offer this feedback so that Square Enix can help improve the game. Though honestly, it's the game's title of Remastered, and it being marketed with the ambition to improve the game's graphics and be the definitive version, that leads to some of these complaints. First and foremost, there's the most obvious one, and it's the one I've been most adamant about since the announcement of the game. Final Fantasy VIII easily had some of the most beautiful and inspired locations of any Final Fantasy game. I can't even begin to tell you or understate just how enchanting these modern fantasy locales are, and how great it would be to see them in true HD. Previously though, this was thought impossible, due to the loss of assets used to create these backgrounds, thus making re-rendering them in HD resolutions impossible. However, this notion has been entirely changed with the presence of artificial intelligence-based upscaling algorithms, which can take a low-resolution image and through the use of neural networks can recompute what the image would look like at a higher resolution. The result is an image where the quality is not just simply maintained, but the image quality is actually improved. Unfortunately, Square Enix mysteriously decided not to use any AI upscalers, leaving the backgrounds to look like a blurry mess, and the very well done character models make this issue even more apparent. Backgrounds of course aren't the only thing, but the textures in battle environments also seem to be untouched as well, which as a real-time 3D environment, it would have been easy to upscale these. Even with a non-AI upscaler like Waifu 2X, it would have done a tremendous amount of good here. These could have been made to look tremendously better, but instead nothing is done, and it honestly is a shame, as this really seems like one of the easier areas to improve. But speaking of the game's real-time 3D, the overworld map was also completely untouched. Again, these areas are relatively easy to retouch, and something that modders have managed to improve the fidelity of over the years with high-resolution textures. In fact, if Square was to take note from companies like Sega, they could literally hire some of these modders and other fan creators to make some of this stuff, as not only have they already figured it out, they'd be more than willing to contribute. In fact, some of them would probably even let you use the work for free as long as they were credited. But in either case, there are smarter solutions for this. But it's about more than just graphics. This version of the game also has some very weird input issues. For starters, unlike the PS1 version, which featured 360 degrees of movement, in this version, you only have 8 directions you can move in, leading to very poor and rigid movement. And sometimes positioning yourself just to talk to an NPC or go through a door can be a chore. Don't even bother trying to use your analog stick on your controller. In my experiences, you're almost always better off using the D-pad. And even then, it feels much more stiff than it should. But it's not just movement. Previously in the PlayStation 1 version, while battles would run at 15 FPS, the game menus would run at 60 FPS. However, with this remaster, the menus run at the same frame rate as the battles do. This may seem like a trivial thing, but it absolutely isn't. If you've noticed things like timing your input for limit breaks being severely more difficult to pull off than they were on the PS1 version, that's because there's 1/4 the amount of frames to read your input. This means that pretty much doing anything that relies on timing is now a lot more tedious than ever to pull off. These issues are ones of a technical nature, and it might have been impossible for developer.emu to fix, especially considering the game's lack of source code. When Digital Foundry looked into the issue, they found, quote, "Evidence suggests that all consoles are running on a decompiled version of the original PC edition released in 2000, possibly with some sort of x86 emulator. This may explain why the new release shares many of the more disappointing quirks of the original PC port. which compare unfavorably with the PS1 version. Considering the lack of the actual game's source code, these limitations were probably imposed by what they had to do to get this game working. The game was created by using a heavily reversed engineered version of the PC edition. This also explains why some users have experienced the bug where the game will occasionally play the PC MIDI soundtrack instead of the original PS1 soundtrack. Though, speaking of which, having the option for a remastered soundtrack would have been appreciated greatly, and it's quite disappointing to see it absent from here, as FF8 has one of the best soundtracks in the series. Overall, Final Fantasy VIII Remastered was a tremendous effort. Just getting this game running without the original source code is nothing short of a miracle, but the game sadly in some ways is not quite up to the level of polish that we wanted. Modders will almost certainly be able to fix many of these issues, though it shouldn't just be up to the community to fix the game. So Ultima Weapons, are you satisfied with Final Fantasy VIII Remastered? Do you hope that Square Enix will fix some of these issues? Or are you just glad that we got anything for FF8? Subscribe, click the bell icon, and let me know in the comments below. And if you've been enjoying my content, be sure to check out the Patreon for the Night Sky prints. Incredible people like Yusuf are helping me keeping this channel going, and I got plenty of Final Fantasy and JRPG videos coming for you guys, especially with TGS coming up. We're about to get a lot of new stuff on Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I'm super excited. So if you'd like to more directly contribute to the journey, be sure to check the link in the description below. Shout out to Yusuf and the rest of the Ultima community.